go to 4-year staggered terms, they added this section right here of Article 5. Article 5, Section 4. It says, upon a petition of the tribal, to the tribal council, of at least 20% of the total eligible voters, a recall shall be held within 30 days of submitting the petition to the tribal council to determine whether a member shall be recalled and removed from office. I believe it was between 2004 and 2006, after he was, no, it was before he was removed, because he was still on the council. A group of people came up with a petition. Now, nobody even knows if they met the 20% requirement. They believe they did, but they came in and they presented their petition to remove some of the council members. Remember what I told you happened to that petition? They took it and walked over to the trash can in their office, dropped it in there, and that's where it stayed. The council didn't honor it. They basically said, oh, we got the power, we'll decide that. We ain't even going to review your petition. We aren't going to decide if the names are adequate. We aren't going to decide if you followed the right procedure. We aren't going to decide if you got enough signatures. We aren't going to do that, period, end of story. So once again, the people's effort to have a say was wiped out, was overridden by that single word, power. And that's why we have to separate the powers of the council. So we started talking about the specific powers of the council. One of them was, and that's going on right now, people are angry about that, but there it is. So again, if they don't like that, that's why they need to take part. The first one is the council has the power to negotiate with federal, state, and local governments on behalf of the tribe. Doesn't say what about, just says they have the power to do that. So when people get angry at the councils over the years, for, gee, it's been going on for about 20 years, for negotiating with the state of Montana and the federal government over our water rights, it says right there, basically, that the council has the power to do that, doesn't it? That's one of the powers of the council. Now, as I make the point, and I want to do it again for anybody that may watch later, under the water rights agreement as it is, the people will have the power to vote on the final approval of that. But under this article right here, just by itself, the council could do that, do other things on its own. It goes on to say, negotiate, advise, and consult with representatives of the Department of Interior on all activities of the department that may affect the Blackfeet tribe. So when we continue to do that on a regular basis, the council negotiates over 638 grants, we negotiate our indicant cost rate, we talk to them about various laws that we think we want or that we're opposed to or whatever. So that continues to go on. It says we have the power of the council to employ legal counsel, attorneys, for the protection and advancement of the rights of the tribe and its members. But the choice of the council and the fixing of fees have to be approved by the Secretary of Interior. And as we talked last time, arguably the Secretary could say, oh, we don't like Joe McKay, we don't want you to hire him, we're not going to approve that. Or we don't like how much you're paying that person, we're not going to approve that. And in theory, restrict who the tribe actually hired as an attorney. Now, Mr. Edwards at the last meeting raised that point about that. He said, well, during the meltdown, it appeared that the attorneys, or at least some of them, were actually advising the group of the council that it was okay to break the law, that it was okay not to follow the Constitution. And so I told him, well, that raises that simple question of who is the client of the tribal attorney? Is the client the tribal council, or is it the tribe itself as a tribe? And if it's the tribe itself, doesn't the attorney have a duty to tell the council when necessary, wait now, you're exceeding the scope of your authority under your own constitution. You can't do that. You're violating your constitution. Or just that particular action you want to take may not be in the best interest of the tribe. And it's our duty to let you know that, and at least speak up and say that to you. And so that's a legitimate issue. Who does the tribal attorney represent? Because in a lot of circumstances, the council looks to their attorneys to give them approval, right? And if the attorney passes their blessing on something, no matter how bad or how illegal it might be, the council uses that as a means to justify it, don't they? Oh, the attorney said it was all right. The attorney approved it, so must be okay. Legal said it was okay. Ask legal. They said it was okay. So doesn't the attorney then have a duty to say, no, I don't represent you as the council. I represent the best interests of the tribe and its members. And if you look at it that way, the council's not all the members. At some point, the attorney has to elevate themselves, not in a power sense, but above the politics and say, wait now, I'm an advisor here. I have a duty to offer appropriate advice. Whether you agree with me or not is that you're right, but it's my duty to say, let's think about that. That might not be the best thing. That might not be an appropriate thing. That might even be illegal. And so it's my duty to tell you that. The next power of the council was the power to prevent the sale, disposition, lease, or encumbrance of tribal land or interest in tribal land or other assets without the consent of the tribe. That seems now, if we just took that first part, prevent the sale, disposition, lease, or encumbrance of tribal land or interest in land or other assets, that would be okay. But it goes on to have that other language again, doesn't it? Without the consent of the tribe. Now, what does that mean? And that really is, in my own opinion, one of those gray things that you could argue about. So the council would say, well, it doesn't say without the consent of the people, and we're the elected representatives of the tribe. So it's really just saying without our consent that this can't happen. Other folks look at that and say, no, the tribe means the people, so you can't do that without the consent of the people. Well, let's talk about that just for a second. I brought this up at the end last time. The Crow were one of the few, about 87 tribes, 300 and something, between 1935 and 1940. About 300 tribes adopted some kind of government under the Indian Reorganization Act, some kind of constitution. The Crows were one that didn't. And so when the Crows met, a council meeting consisted of every member of the tribe. Remember I told you I was fortunate enough as a child to go to a Crow Tribal Council meeting at Crow Agency, this big gymnasium. The council, the kind of governing, or the council itself, they really didn't govern. They got ready to pass a resolution, and then somebody said put it to a vote, and everything stopped. They had two little voting booths. Everybody in the room, the gymnasium, would line up at those booths and vote on every issue. And we all used to, as I got older and got into politics myself, we used to joke about the Crow, didn't we? Oh, do it Crow style. Everybody in the world gets to vote. And the reason we joked about it was the Crows didn't seem to progress very far. They didn't seem to get far because that's the way they did things. More recently, they wrote and adopted their own constitution. You know, to the degree they're successful, I guess we just have to study that. But they seem to be doing better than they were when everybody voted on everything. So there's two ways to look at that. One is that means the council speaks for the tribe because it doesn't say without the consent of the people. read it that way, then a bunch of things the council does would have to be subjected to referendum vote. We talked about the council has the power to advise the Interior about appropriations and budgets. And then Article 6, Section 1E, to manage the economic affairs of the tribe, including oil and gas leases and dispositions of oil royalties from tribal lands in accordance with the terms of a charter to be issued by the Secretary of the Interior. And we talked about that charter. I'm going to pause here, just pull it up for a second, in case you haven't got it. There's some laying on the table here. So then in 1936, I believe, we voted, oh, that's right, this is not on there, I gotta do it. We voted on this charter, and the people, let's see, what was the date of that? December 27th, 1936, we adopted a charter. And that charter basically makes the tribal council the corporate board of the tribe. And as we talk, there's a provision in this charter which is based on 1930s amounts and whatnot. 1936, $10,000 was a lot of money. And so the charter says in this section, let's see, under corporate powers, section 5B, the council has the power to purchase by, take by gift, bequest, or otherwise own, hold, manage, operate, dispose of property of every description, real and personal, subject to the following limitation. No sale or mortgage may be made by the tribe of any land or interest in land, including water, power sites, water rights, oil and gas, other mineral rights, now or hereinafter held by the tribe within the reservation boundaries. No sale of any other capital asset of the tribe exceeding in sum the value of $10,000 may be made unless approved by a vote of the majority of the tribal council, a majority vote at a referendum called by the tribal council as provided in Article 9 of the Constitution. So in other words, they were saying if the tribe's going to sell anything that's worth more than $10,000, got to have a referendum vote. Back in 1936, that was a lot of money. I remember we moved forward to today, and you're driving a brand new truck, one of those $40,000 trucks. You drive it for a couple of years, still got a trade-in value of maybe $20,000. So what that means is every time the tribe went to trade in a vehicle, we'd have to have a referendum vote. So there are some things even in our charter that by virtue of time moving forward would be restrictive on the ability of the tribe, the council to do business. But rather than just ignore them, wouldn't it be better to amend those things and change them to make them reflect the times, to operate under the document rather than just violate it all the time? So in that sense, the charter has kind of become meaningless